Hi everyone, my name is Shauna, in case you don't know, and welcome back to another video. I was feeling depressed the other day and I went ahead and went to Target, and my depressed brain was like, I should buy new makeup. And so I bought contour that is like a cream stick and a brush for my foundation. And I have to say, I hate everything. It didn't work out well. But I'm hoping that this lighting at least makes my face appear decent enough. Hopefully. I don't know. I was gonna practice with this makeup on a TikTok live, and I'm so glad that I didn't, and that I did it before filming a YouTube video, because I would have been crying on the live because it was turning out that poorly. Oh my god. I suck at makeup. I think we all know this at this point. And yeah. I hate this. Anyways, let's get on to the content of today's video. Today I'm going to be doing a book tag, and this is the Drunk Book Tag. The Drunk Book Tag was created by Julie Z Author, and I will link their YouTube channel down in the description below. So it's actually funny that I'm doing this tag because I don't drink alcohol, but I thought that the questions were fun. I don't drink alcohol for personal reasons. I'm on like a ton of medications. It complicates my medication situation, and I just really scared of getting alcoholism because it sort of runs in my family. However, I still appreciate people who drink alcohol, and there are so many of them that look appealing, but I just have not taken the leap into trying it yet, and I don't think I ever will, but I don't know at this point in time. So there's 10 questions on this book tag. Most of them are just different alcoholic beverages with a question related to that. The first question says, wine coolers. You're 16 and finally managed to sneak one of your mom's Smirnoff Ices. What is one of your most guilty pleasure reads? So I have a lot of guilty pleasure reads. So I view guilty pleasures as just books that I feel like I shouldn't be reading, whether the book is cringy or it's not like my age range. Like sometimes I read kids books and stuff, but for this I'm gonna do one that is cringy and not the greatest, so I feel like I shouldn't like it. However, I do like it. This book is Wolf Signs. It's the first book in the Granite Lake Wolf series by Vivian Arend. So this is a book I got free in the iBook store, and it's really spicy and steamy. However, I like this book despite how cringy it is. So the main character, Robin, is doing a backcountry ski trip. Her brother canceled on her, so she's doing it by herself, and while she's there she bumps into this guy named Keel on the trip. And Keel is a werewolf, and he was planning on challenging for the position of alpha in his pack. So they both were out in the wilderness, not expecting to bump into each other and find each other as mates. Robin is deaf and uses sign language, so that's really fun representation there. I do think that it could have been done a little better for that deaf representation. However, I still enjoyed this book. I thought it was really fast-paced but really interesting, and I'm curious what will happen next, but I don't know if I'm gonna like continue on with this series. So this is one that I would definitely consider a guilty pleasure read. It's a paranormal romance werewolf book, obviously. Question number 2, beer. You've made it to college and are hosting your first kegger. Pick your favorite new adult or college-aged book. So most of my favorite new adult books are by one author, which is Katia Rose. It's asking about my favorite one, so my favorite one would probably be Just Might Work. So this is a romance book between a non-binary person and a woman that are college age, and it's new adult. So basically there's two main characters, is Dane and Evangeline, and Dane's aunt is obsessed with soulmates and like shipping people together, and she believes herself to be like a matchmaker. So Dane's aunt firmly believes that Evangeline is Dane's match and that they are meant for each other. So Dane's aunt has been pushing them to get together. And Dane and Evangeline are roommates in Dane's aunt's place. However, one day Dane's aunt says to them, I am looking at selling the place. So they both come together and they realize, we love this place and we don't want to lose this place, and Dane's aunt has been shipping us together. So the perfect way to get Dane's aunt to let them to stay at this place is that they decide that the best option will be to fake date. And of course, when fake dating happens, most of the time feelings ensue from there. So this book is so sweet and so intense, and I love it so much. It has steamy moments, but it also has really serious, heartfelt moments. I love the chemistry between Dane and Evangeline, and I love the representation that Dane's character brings into this book. I felt like it was a really great representation of a non-binary character. So this is my favorite book that is like new adult / college aged. So that's one that I'm choosing for this. Question number 3 is Tequila. You partied too hard last night and drank a little too much. Jose Cuervo. Don't know if I said that word right. What's a book that you never want to see again, or your least favorite book? I'm gonna go with a recent one because I feel like I've had a ton of 1-star reads this year, which is really unfortunate, but it's just the luck of the draw. I read whatever I'm in the mood for, and sometimes mood reading means that I'm reading stuff that I end up not liking a lot. So this book that I never want to see again is called Abandon Us. It is by E.T. Gunnarsson, and it is part of the Odemark series. This book was one that did not work for me at all. It's really hard to describe what this book is about because it felt like the author couldn't decide whether they wanted to write a war story, a plague story, or a zombie story, or a dystopian futuristic story. Like, it felt like there were so many separate ideas that this book felt like it was written in chunks. It felt like it started off as one idea, and that was like a coherent chunk, and then it felt like it drastically would shift to a different topic, which made it really challenging for me to get through, and it made it frustrating because it felt like it wasn't a coherent book very much. I also did not like the characters at all. I found the two main characters were basically carbon copies of each other, and I felt like there was some racism here in regards to Chinese people that was completely unnecessary and uncalled for. And also, I was nearly falling asleep every time I picked up this book to read the book, which says a lot about my thoughts on the book, so I never want to see Abandon Us again. Luckily, I read it as a ebook, so I don't have the physical copy on my shelf, because if I had the physical copy, I would be walking to a little free library right now to go drop off that book. But I don't have it, and I'm hoping to get this book erased from my brain so that it doesn't take up memory space in my brain, if you know what I mean. Question number 4 is beer pong. What's a book that you read super fast? The book that I read super fast is The Sun Is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. This is a romance book, and I find that I fly through Nicola Yoon's books really quickly because she has a super fast-paced writing style that works really well for me. Her chapters are super short, and her books are always captivating. So this book follows 2 characters. So the first one is Natasha, and Natasha is a girl who is very firmly set on believing in science and facts. She doesn't believe in things like fate and destiny and things along those lines. Her family is about to be deported in 12 hours, and she is in New York City. When she's there, she bumps into Daniel. So Daniel is a boy who also doesn't really believe in like dreams and stuff like that, and he has to meet his parents' high expectations for him. However, he bumps into Natasha as well, and they immediately start to feel a connection and realize that there is possibly something more there. This book is really intense, but it's also super sweet and heartfelt. I will never forget this book. I still need to watch the movie for this one because I'm really curious if the movie lives up to the book. I'm hoping it does, but honestly, as much as I love the 2 main characters in the movie, they don't match up at all what I pictured the characters as when I was reading the book. So I'm really curious to see if somehow this movie can make me ignored the part that they don't look at all like how I imagine the characters to be. But yeah, I read that one super fast. I think I read it in the span of 24 hours. Question number 5, spring break. You've thrown your inhibitions to the wind and end up having a sexy night you'll never forget. What is your favorite smutty read? I have a lot. In case you don't know, it's always so funny because I'm ace, and most of the ace people I know, we're all like, we're ace, we can be like sex averse or sex neutral, but then it comes to books and we're just reading like so much smut, and I love that for us. So for this one, I'm going to be choosing The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. This was one of the first smutty books that I ever read, and I absolutely love it. So this book is a male loves male romance, and it takes place on the set of a dating show. The main character, Charlie, is the like Prince Charming of the show. He is like the one who doesn't believe in true love, but who is there to find his match. And Dev is a guy who is working behind the scenes. He's a producer in the show, and he realizes that Charlie needs help getting out of his shell. So some romance starts from there, and it's somewhat of a forbidden romance because it takes place on a film set, and Charlie is supposed to be getting with one of these girls that he is interacting with and filming this dating show with. However, Charlie starts to catch some feelings for Dev. So it's a really, really fun and interesting book. The mental health representation in this book is absolutely incredible. I feel so seen by the mental health representation in this book. There's also an exploration of asexuality in this book, which also makes me feel really seen and understood. I love this book so much, and I feel like Alison Cochrane is such an amazing author. She writes such intense and heartfelt stuff, but it's also like fun, and it's really addicting to read her books. Question number 6, Screwdriver. What's the most twisted book you've ever read? The most twisted book that I've ever read will always be Scammed by Kristen Simmons. This is part of the Vale Hall series, and this is in particular the second book. So the Vale Hall series is about a school for scam artists. It is like a thriller, it has romance in it, it's young adult, it's such a great series, but it's the second book in the series where my heart felt like it skipped so many beats. Like, I was stressed out because it was so twisty. There was twist after twist after twist, and I didn't expect any of that stuff to happen. It was such an intense read, but it is such a good read. And if you want to read a series with the best plot twist that you will ever read in your life, then read the Vale Hall series, because honestly, no other book can live up to the amount of plot twists that were in this second book in the Vale Hall series. Question number 7, Long Island Iced Tea, the melting pot of alcoholic beverages. What is one of your favorite diverse reads? One of my favorite diverse reads is The Sound of Stars by Alekia Dow. Alekia Dow writes some really amazing diverse sci-fi books, and The Sound of Stars is the first one that I read from Alekia Dow, and it is Alekia's first book, and it is such an incredible book. So it's a romance that occurs between an alien and a human. The human is a girl who is demisexual, she is black, and she is plus size. So there's great representation in her, and as someone who's ace, I really appreciate the demi representation. I felt like it was really done well. This is such a fun book. It is a sci-fi book that takes place on Earth, and it's like an escape adventure, and it is so much fun to read. I need to read more in this universe because I know that most of Alekia's books are intertwined and connect, but this one will always hold such a special place in my heart, and I will never forget it. And Ellie and Morris are honestly one of my favorite couples of all time. I love The Sound of Stars so freaking much, and I wish there was like a hardcore sequel to this book that follows Ellie and Morris, but I know that there is like times when Ellie and Morris and things from their story intertwine with the other books that Alekia has written. Question number 8, Sex on the Beach, a drink that's great in theory but wasn't exactly all it was cracked up to be. What type of alcohol is in a drink called Sex on the Beach? I'm curious. So for this one, it is, what is a book that just didn't live up to the hype? Fable by Adrienne Young. I read that one recently. Why is that so hyped? I am so sorry. I tried so hard to like that book, and it just did not work for me. So I read The Last Legacy by Adrienne Young because I got an arc of it a while ago, which isn't Adrienne Young's first book, and most people said that Fable is better. My thoughts on The Last Legacy was that it was pretty good, and I loved the writing style, but I feel like it needed different content to be like amazing. And people were commenting on my updates and my reviews going, well, based on what you're saying, you're gonna love Fable because Fable has the same writing style, but it's more interesting content with better characters. So I was like, great. I am gonna love Fable. I got it on Kindle Unlimited, started it up last month, finished it last month, and hated it. So Fable is about this girl who lives on this island, and her terrible father has dumped her on this island. Her terrible father says, you need to fend for yourself, and as soon as you can get off this island and make it to where I live, then I will give you what you deserve. So she has been fighting and struggling to make it through on this island, and it's like an island full of like criminals essentially. And the story starts with her figuring out how to get off of this island. It sounds so good, but it just is not that great. I didn't like any of the characters. I found a lot of the side characters had identical personalities to each other. I wasn't a huge fan of the main character. I found that the writing style was not the same as The Last Legacy. I found that I really liked the writing style in The Last Legacy, but not in Fable. That could just be because The Last Legacy is one of Adrienne Young's newest books, so maybe her writing style has improved. But my biggest issue is just how bored I was the whole time I was reading this book. It was another one of those books that every time I picked it up, I was nearly falling asleep from how bored I was. And that is a huge problem for me because I read for fun. I read to distract myself from a lot of my physical symptoms. I mean, I got super hardcore back into reading when my physical health got really, really bad. So I use reading as an escape. And if a book isn't distracting me from how tired I am from constantly having health issues, then I already know that it's not that great of a book for me. So Fable's just one that I really didn't like, and I honestly don't understand the hype about it. If there was like more action, if the characters were more likable, if the pacing was faster, I would have understood the hype, but it is a book that is not for me. Question number 9 is wine. You've just gone through a rough breakup, so you park yourself in bed with your favorite bottle of wine, some ice cream, and a bucket for your tears. Name a book that made you cry out all of your feels. I'm going with The Death Cure, because anytime that I think about a book that I cried the most at, it will always be The Death Cure, because I procrastinated finishing that book for the longest time because I knew what happened, and I knew the specific page numbers these events happened on, because in case you don't know about the Maze Runner fandom, there is 2 major character deaths in The Death Cure, and in the fandom we refer to those deaths by the page number that they occur on. So I started reading that book, and then I'm like, I'm getting too close to those page numbers, I'm scared, and so I kept putting it off, and then I finally one night finished the book, and I was sobbing my eyes out. This was like years and years and years ago, but I cannot read this book again because I sobbed so much. And every time I rewatch the movie, which isn't often because if I were to rewatch the movie too much, my depression would get really bad, I saw my eyes out whenever I rewatched the movie. It's like a whole thing. It is not pleasant, but at the same time, I love it so much. So The Death Cure is the third book in the Maze Runner series, in case you don't know, and it follows these boys who are put into this maze. They don't have their memories, so they don't know why they're put into this maze. It's a dystopian series that is really, really fun and interesting, but it is really depressing because of the lots of character deaths that occur. I still need to read the spin-off series, which I think is called the Maze Cutter series, if I'm remembering correctly. At least the first book is called the Maze Cutter, because I'm really curious what happens in that spin-off series. And question number 10 says, Strip Club, what's the sexiest naked book? I love me a good naked book. In case you don't know what naked books are, it's just when you take off the cover for a book and it looks gorgeous underneath. I have so many books I could choose for this, but I am just going to go find one on my shelf that's really pretty right now, because the books that I have read are in my TV stand there and they're a little hard to pull out. So I'm just going to go find one on my shelf, probably one that I haven't read yet, because they're easier to access for me, that looks really pretty, so that all of you can just admire its beauty with me. So this is the first one that I found on my shelf that has a really, really pretty naked cover. So let's peel off this jacket and see what she looks like underneath. Look at that beautiful gold embossing. I am in love with this. I cannot wait to read this book. I've had this book on my shelf for such a long time, and it sounds so interesting. I want it in a giveaway, but I have not got around to reading it yet. I am going to be reading the back of this so that I can give you an accurate summary of what Eris apparently is about. Oh, so the back is actually a huge passage from the book, so it's on the inside little part here. Behind every great family lies a great secret. There's one rule in Gemma Huang's family: never under any circumstances set foot in Beijing. But when Gemma, an aspiring actress, lands her first break, a lead role in an update of M Butterfly, which just so happens to be filming in the Chinese capital, Gemma heads to LAX without looking back. It's an amazing opportunity for her burgeoning career, and she'll get to work with her idol. Of course, there's also the chance of discovering just exactly why she's been forbidden from entering the city in the first place. When Gemma arrives in Beijing, she's instantly mobbed by paparazzi at the airport. She quickly realizes she may as well be the twin of Alyssa Chuo, one of the most notorious young socialites in Beijing. Thus kicks off a season of revelations and romance in which Gemma uncovers a legacy her parents have spent their lives protecting her from, one her mother would conceal at any cost. So this book sounds like it's going to be filled with lots of drama, and I cannot wait to read it and learn more about it. I have a good feeling that the pacing on this book will be perfect, so I'm hoping that I can fly through this book when I eventually get around to reading it. So those are the 10 books that I am choosing for this drunk book tag. I hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to me if you haven't already. All of my other social media, including things like my TikTok, where you can see a lot of my cosplays, my Instagram, where I have cosplay pictures, and my Goodreads, will be linked down in the description below. And until next time, goodbye.